What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the program. I don't know. I think we're all good. I got my guy Marco here with me. And so we're going to be doing a little bit of an interesting show. He's going live with his boy Jay Harp. But for the first 10, 15 minutes or so, he's going to be hopping on with me. As you guys know, I was at training camp today. First day of padded practices.
Rohan, did my beautiful intro not go through?
It did not, but it's
Bro,
all
it's
right.
so funny. So right now I realized that I was doing something earlier in my mic to fix things. So I completely didn't have it connected. So that's hilarious right now. I thought it was
So you
connected.
could hear him, but you couldn't hear him. You know what I mean? He
I
was
feel
he
it.
was
But
probably blabbering as usual, but it's all right.
Rohan, you were there at camp, man. Talk to me. What did I know the let's get straight to it because I know obviously the big talk was the offensive line play. Was it that bad? Like there's people that are saying like it was like awful. Like is it that bad?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, this was probably, it was weird because you expect as training camp to go along with pads on, offensive line has a better chance, obviously against the defensive line. It's a little bit more like a live ball situation than the first few days at camp. And there's a lot of moving parts, Today, no Jake Brendel. I guess a veteran rest day. John Feliciano seems to still be dealing with a knee issue. We now know Spencer Burford's out for probably the next 3 weeks with a broken hand. And then Trent Williams is obviously not there. And so your offensive line is Jalen Moore. You had Aaron Banks at left guard, Ben Barch and Nick Zakel split first team reps at center, Dominic Puny at right guard, and then Colton McKivitz at right tackle. And I'll say this just to highlight what I saw. I honestly thought Colton McKivitz was the best offensive lineman of the day. And
Sheesh.
when you're hearing that as a 49ers fan, I don't know how happy you generally are. I didn't think the play was good, especially in the interior. I thought Javon Hargrave consistently got in the backfield. He beat Aaron Banks a couple of times, but just in general, regardless of whether it was first, second, or third team, offensive line was not great today.
Alrighty, Rohan. I'm gonna head out. I'm glad you wanted to hear how the offense line looked. I'm gonna head out. I'm hopping on with Jay Harp right now to talk. So I'm gonna give you a your solo stream style. So that actually worked. I didn't think it was gonna work if I
I
did it
didn't
like
know
this.
that double worked with this, but good to
I thought it
know.
was a solo overlay, so that's cool. We have another overlay, so I with my new logo, so that's pretty cool. I'll have to make another one. But Rohan, do your thing, man. Tell everybody how practice went. I'll be on with Jay Harp, so you guys can watch that after you guys finish up watching Rohan. Shout out to you, Rohan. Keep doing your thing, man.
Appreciate it. This one's not going to be too long. Appreciate you for tuning in, Guyaba. Hopefully, I'm not mispronouncing it. Not going to be too long, probably around 30 minutes as I break down practice. Offensive line, though, like I said, was a main takeaway. When you look at the offensive line group right now, it's not the normal offensive line group. You don't have your starting center out there. Dominic Puny right now could be the starting right guard. You don't know whether that's going to be the case. A bit of a mix up. And then Jalen Moore's there. And so it's unfortunate because the pockets are collapsing on almost every single play. You've got on the tackles, you've got the edges kind of collapsing the pocket. On the interior, they're suffocating the pocket. It's hard for the quarterbacks to play. And so let's start with the offense. How did the offense look today? It was much like it was on Friday, a little worse, if we're being honest. Friday was just a dull day. The offense couldn't get much going. Today, there was two different sessions in team drills. There was the normal move the ball session, and then there was the red zone session. So in the start of move the ball, that was probably when the offense had its best success. It was more of a run install day with the first day of pads at the beginning. The running back saw success. You saw Jordan Mason get the first carry. He had a hard, great run to start the day. Elijah Mitchell was right behind him. There was a rotation between them two for at running back. But I thought that run portion was a solid part for the offense. After that, though, there were a couple of catches. Mason had a catch. Cameron Latu had one of his first catches. But really, after those two catches, it went downhill from there. With the third team, Cody Schrader came in. He had a run stuffed by cornerback Chase Lucas. T.Y. McGill had a stop in the backfield. And then when you get to the red zone, Brock Purdy throws an interception on one of the first plays. His first pass attempt, it was an interception. And what happened on that play? So Purdy, the pocket is collapsing, as I said. Again, it's a little tough of an environment, but Purdy, you still have ample space. He's throwing this ball to Logan Thomas. I thought this ball was catchable. I honestly did think this ball was catchable. It ended up being a tip drill. I thought the ball was well placed. Logan Thomas was covered by Isaac Yiadom. Yiadom was on the right side. Thomas was on the left side. I thought the ball was more towards the left side. I didn't think Thomas made enough of an effort to go to the ball. He kind of waited for the ball to go to him. The ball gets deflected and then tipped up in the air. And in the red zone, Fred Warner intercepted it. So already a negative kind of start for the offense initially. One thing to note, Renardo Green, he got first team, or actually I'll get to the defense in a bit. From there, Brock Purdy interception. He then threw an incompletion to Chris Conley, aimed a ball too high. This ball was in traffic. Maybe not the best decision overall. And because it was in traffic, Purdy aired it high, hoping to make a play, just way too high for Chris Conley. Incompletion there. The next play, Purdy threw a 50-50 ball to Juwan Jennings towards the right side of the end zone. Would have been a touchdown had he come down with it. Renardo Green was in coverage out of the slot with the first team defense. Great play from Renardo Green. He was able to break the ball loose and record a PBU, and the offense kind of stalled there in that kind of portion. Purdy's next play, or actually on that play, the pass to Juwan Jennings, have to note, offensive line was severely beaten. It was the interior that struggled. Nick Zakel was getting first-team reps at center at this stage. Aaron Banks and Zakel were there. They got killed. Javon Hargrave was the one who beat Aaron Banks, but both guys really got pushed back. Hargrave was the one who initially beat. Zakel was beat. He beat Banks, and then Zakel was beat after that. Made it a quick decision for Purdy. Couldn't go through his progressions. Ended up throwing the go ball, or the 50-50 ball to Juwan Jennings. That one was broken up. On the following play, much of the similar. Purdy was sacked, or would have been sacked on that play. Pressure got to the backfield. He ultimately did make a throw, ended up throwing a touch pass, a floater type of pass to Deebo Samuel for a touchdown. You don't count it, though. He was sacked. Rough start for the offense. With the twos in the red zone, Brandon Allen, his first pass, an incompletion. It was to Elijah Mitchell. It was high, and it went through the hands of Mitchell. Thought maybe it was a little catchable. It was still high, though. An incompletion there. And then with the third team offense, Josh Dobbs, he came in. He had the best session, I guess, of the first red zone period. He threw a touchdown, a tight window. I guess it's like where the defense was converging. Jennings right at the line, at the end zone on the right side. Dobbs, good awareness, good throw, tight window as the defense was converging in. Hit Juwan Jennings. That was the first touchdown of the day. His second pass in incompletion really was to nowhere. There was a lot of traffic in the area, an incompletion off target. Then we get to the second period of team drills, and the offense, it seemed like, was going to finally have some life. When you look at the offense, they clearly needed something after a really bad red zone period. It was just ugly there. Deebo Samuel got an end around, and that end around went for probably 15, 20 yards. It was a really good play. It fooled the defense. Samuel gets upfield. He gets hit by Jair Brown out of bounds. A nice hit from Brown, but a great gain for the offense. But after that, Brock Purdy threw his second interception. This one was honestly one of the more phenomenal plays that I saw the whole day. Deommodore Lenoir recorded the interception here. This is like a deep crosser in a way from Braden Willis, who's going to the right corner of the end, right corner near the sideline, probably 15 yards or so downfield. Purdy getting pressured here. He's throwing off of his back foot, I believe. But this one was just one where Purdy's kind of he's leaning back and throwing. He ends up throwing this ball, a deep pass to the sideline. I thought the ball was slightly wide, but I thought if Braden Willis had laid out, he had a chance to catch the ball. Deommodore Lenoir, though, was the one who ultimately did lay out. I have no clue how he got this interception. He dove on the ball and essentially beat Willis to the ball. And, great physical play from Deommodore Lenoir. He gets the interception, dove for the pick. Great play. Pick number 2 for Brock Purdy on the day. Ended up like that. Purdy continued to struggle a little bit after that. Next ball, he wanted to go deep, look for Deebo Samuel. Samuel couldn't separate against Isaac Yiadom, had Jair Brown in coverage as well on that play. The ball was overthrown. It's been the case for a lot of the deep balls between Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel so far. Overthrown, receiver struggling a little bit to separate in man coverage. So that one ultimately didn't work out. Purdy did get a nice ball to end his period to Danny Gray after that, and then it came to the second team. But really, not too much. Brandon Allen, his lone pass, an incompletion. It was high to Jake Tonjes on another deep pass. Same mold where it was an incompletion on a would-be intermediate deep pass kind of thing. Josh Dobbs, he had a couple of passes completed. Hit a slant, hit a check down, and so hit a slant and then probably would have been sacked, but rolled out to his right, had a really nice throw. Malik Turner had a really cool diving catch. That was probably one of the highlights for the offense as well. In the second red zone period came another interception from Brock Purdy. This is the one that I'd probably blame the most on Brock Purdy. Pressure coming, Purdy looking to make a decision, and I thought he just shouldn't have thrown this ball. He was looking for Trent Taylor for Deebo Samuel. Samuel was going to be open on the play, and it felt like he could have potentially fit it in, but George Odom was closing in. As Purdy threw the ball, Odom closed in, got a really nice pick in the red zone for another unsuccessful red zone period there, or a red zone play there. That one was the one that I'd probably blame Purdy the most of. Just a ball that was kind of unnecessary, just trying to fit it into a window. That one I was not a big fan of overall. Just one of those ones where you're like, yeah, that's a decision where you don't want to risk it being the gunslinger. After that, though, Purdy did hit Trent Taylor this time. Mixed up the two names. Trent Taylor this time on a touchdown, got him on a slant, just a nice rhythm throw. He then had one more completion, just a check down to Elijah Mitchell. That was the end of his day. In the red zone elsewhere, the one other major play was Josh Dobbs. He hit Trent Taylor as well for a touchdown. So 2 touchdowns on the day for Trent Taylor. But apart from that, really, it was all defense. Just a ton of incompletions. Red zone period really struggled for all three teams. Interceptions were there. Just good coverage was there. And more importantly, a lot of pressure was there. And so that's kind of the breakdown of the offense. When I look at the defense and maybe some of the takeaways that I had from the group, one, you look at cornerback Renardo Green, fully with the ones today. Charvarius Ward did practice. He was in individual drills, did not participate in team drills. That allows Renardo Green to get in there with the ones in team drills. Initially, for that first series of plays, Renardo Green actually worked on the outside for the first time that I've seen with the top defense. He had been mainly in the nickel, both with the first and the second team defense. So he worked on the outside alongside, I forget who's on the other side. I think it was Diamaro Lenore. But yeah, I saw Renardo Green on the outside, which was cool. But mainly, Renardo Green worked in the slot again today. He was battling against Juwan Jennings. Had a nice play, one of the better plays of the day, with the PBU in the red zone. Other defensive takeaways, defensive line. Javon Hargrave is a guy who I mentioned in one of the earlier streams. He's a guy who looks better this year in terms of his body looks revamped. He looks a little more in shape. He looks ready for the season, ready for a bounce back year. And it's not like his last year was bad necessarily, just maybe not up to his normal standards. He looks good, was beating Aaron Banks consistently today. I think that was a good sign. On the edges, you have Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos that were ending up with the ones. Nick Bosa, a rest day today. He did not play. He was one of the only guys defensively to not play. Going back to the offense real quick, there was no Christian McCaffrey, no George Kittle, and then obviously the offensive linemen that I mentioned, none of them as well. And so, you had a good amount of pieces missing on the offense, especially at the playmaking positions. Defense, not as many, only really a couple of guys with Ward and Nick Bosa. But I think the concern is, the defensive line and just the front did as well as they did without Nick Bosa. It's not like Nick Bosa was the one wreaking havoc on the 49ers offensive line. It was the rest. It was the field. I know Javon Hargrave's in there, but really it was a lot of the rotational pieces for the 49ers that were able to do things both with the first, second, and third team offensive line. And so that's something that that you're starting to notice. The defensive line, right now it's better than the offensive line. And you wonder, with pads, with the first team kind of back, how does that change? We'll see. But right now, advantage is definitely going to the defense. I want to give a shout out to everybody else who was tuned in, Raphael, Jason, And thank you really all for supporting so far. Be sure to tune in and ask your questions in the comments. I will be answering every question after getting through the initial breakdown. But that's kind of the main aspect of the defense. They've been looking so good so far. I've also been impressed by the safeties. I thought the safeties, have been doing their part as well so far. Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, those are the two guys. Mustafa had a couple of plays the first 2 days of camp. Jair Brown had a play on Friday with the interception. And I think that they've just been holding up in coverage overall. At cornerback, that's a position that I've been impressed with. Isaac Yiadom, I think, is the real deal. At least so far from what I've seen, I've been impressed by Isaac Yiadom. He's a guy who's more of a man coverage cornerback, and that was seen by his film in New Orleans. More of a press man guy. He can get his hands on you. He can be sticky in coverage. That's what the 49ers are having him do, opposite of Treverius Ward, in that nickel package when Deommodore Lenoir slides inside. And Yiadom's filling the role pretty darn well. He's been mainly in coverage against Deebo Samuel, and he's been able to cover Samuel deep. Now, I know Samuel may not be the best man coverage beater, but Samuel in himself is still a very good receiver. And Yiadom's been, keeping up with the part. Renardo Green, on the other hand, he's a guy who's slowly getting even more and more opportunities. Anytime Ward doesn't practice, with the ones in team drills, that's an opportunity for Renardo Green to show his skills. And right now, it seems the 49ers are favoring him at corner. Cornerback is not a position I'm really that worried about this year. I think Yiadom is legit. I think he definitely has the tools to be the starter for this team. And I think Green, he could probably play this year, but I also think he's the future. And you can probably play him on the inside or the outside, depending on what you end up doing at cornerback between Ward and Lenoir, who are both free agents after this year. So far, fairly impressed by the defense. The big question to me with the defense is one that really we won't see until week 1, and that's how is the run defense? You lose Ark Armstead, you lose Javon Kinlaw. Mainly Armstead's the one with the run defense. You add in Malik Collins, you add in Jordan Elliott. Elliott's obviously one of the better run defenders, but the Niners have been looking like they're going to start Malik Collins. He's been the guy who's been the number 1 in walkthroughs. Kevin Givens seems like the number 3 defensive lineman right now, and all 3 of those guys are more pass rush specialists rather than run defending, specialists. And so that's something that I wonder. Will the 49ers hold up elsewhere to where their run defense is going to be solid? How much of an impact will Collins and Elliott be on the run defense? And can they sustain, and play at a high level when you're going up against offenses, especially some of the top offenses in the NFC that have really potent rushing attacks? And so that's going to be a question the defense is going to have to answer. Looking around at some of the other topics, I want to talk about the running backs real quick because we did see a change, and Kyle Shanahan even talked about it. Jordan Mason, like I said, he was the one who got the first carry. With Christian McCaffrey out, he was the first one out there, and Kyle Shanahan acknowledged it. It's not Mitchell anymore. At least today, it was Jordan Mason. And, Mason is a guy who, like I've said many times before, he's earned an opportunity. He's a guy who runs hard. He has an aggressive style of play, and he's a guy who, I think can be reliable as a pass catcher. At least he's showed that so far. He's a guy who's got good burst, and he's just awaited for that opportunity, the bigger opportunity to showcase himself on a bigger platform. And I think that could be coming this year. Elijah Mitchell got he still worked very closely in rotation, just got the second snaps today. And Mitchell looks fresh too. Mitchell looks like he's fully healthy. He looks fresh. You know what to expect out of Mitchell, who's been a very talented running back every time he's been with the 49ers. But to me, it seems right now that JP Mason or Jordan Mason is trending to be that number 2 guy. And Kyle Shanahan said it today. He said, no disrespect to Elijah Mitchell. JP just runs kind of differently, with the way that his style is. It's unique. And I think that the 49ers are going to look to fill that role. Obviously, I think there's going to be a couple of more snaps for the 49ers running backs this year. I think Christian McCaffrey, you take a little bit of a break or give him a little more rest this year. I think that's going to be important just because you want to keep him fresh for the playoffs, and you have the capability to do it with the guys in the locker room with Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell. Those are the 2 guys that I'm kind of keying in on. And I think that Mason has the chance to get a bigger opportunity rather than 33 and 35 carries in the last 2 seasons. I know a lot of people like Cody Schrader. He's a guy who I kept my eye on today. Thought he had a good run at the end of the day. He had a hard run in the red zone period with the third team offense. I haven't seen too much yet in the sense that he's still only working with the threes. Patrick Taylor gets a majority of the 3 reps, so Schrader kind of comes in whenever Taylor's not in with the threes. And so there isn't too much opportunity yet for Cody Schrader, but you can understand that there's a little something there for sure. Could be a good practice squad guy. We'll see what the 49ers ultimately do with him in the preseason, but I thought he had a good run today as well. Other things, Ricky Pearsall. If you're talking about the receiver position, Ricky Pearsall came back today. That's a good sign. Obviously, when you talk about Ricky Pearsall, he was having that hamstring injury. He was put on the NFI list to begin camp, but he returned. He was in uniform today, participated in individual drills, not in team drills yet, so he's not in the scrimmage portion, not running routes like that. But he did participate in individual drills. Kyle Shanahan said the goal is for him to participate in team drills tomorrow, hopefully, depending on how his body responds. But I'm very excited to see Ricky Pearsall right now because there's still no Brandon Ayuk. And like I said with the wide receiver position, there's been a struggle of separation on those deep routes right now. The guys have not been able to separate. There really hasn't been much connection between the quarterbacks and the receivers on deep balls so far through the first 5 practices of camp. And so I'm curious to see, does Ricky Pearsall potentially change that? Because he's likely going to be running alongside Deebo Samuel in the Brandon Ayuk role. When he comes back, that's a role that he knows well, a role that he kind of likes. I'm gonna kind of be monitoring Pearsall. He probably starts with the second team. He is not going to probably be thrown in the fire immediately, but he's going to be a player to watch definitely for the next few weeks. Moving forward, I think we have to talk a little bit about the offensive line, and it's not only about what I saw today, but it's just what I've seen so far. The offensive line, right? You're missing Trent Williams, so you're going to have an issue there. You got Aaron Banks. You're finding out who is at center. It seems like a competition between Brendel and Feliciano, but both have either rest or injury issues of their own. Right guard, it was going to be Spencer Burford. I honestly thought he was going to be the starter, just given the way the 49ers were using him initially. Now, it seems like it probably could be Dominic Puny, just because he's the guy who's gotten all the 1 reps the last few days. Maybe John Feliciano slides back there, but it could be Dominic Puny. And so you've got a lot of shifting along the offensive line. Colton McKivitt's obviously a right tackle, but I've yet to be inspired by the offensive line so far. And I don't think I will be until Trent Williams comes back, but a lot of people are, looking for an improvement from the offensive line. At center, I don't know what to evaluate yet. We haven't seen much Jake Brendel, with the ones. We haven't seen much overall. I myself was not that impressed with Jake Brendel last year. I thought that, the offensive line, specifically the interior, was not that great. I thought Aaron Banks was not that great. And, that's something you've got to definitely look for this year because the interior is going to be important, not only for the run game, but in general. And so I think this is going to be an issue if the Niners can't find a way to fix it. And I think the best way to fix it is to get them reps with the top group as soon as possible. You need Trent Williams out there. Aaron Banks plays at a better level when he's out there with Trent Williams. It gives you a better level of confidence and things like that. And even though I don't think the Niners resign him, I don't think he's a player to be extended. I think that, you're going to need to see what this offensive line is sooner than later. Trent doesn't play in the preseason, and that's why there's a bit of an issue when you miss, this portion of training camp. It's not a big deal to Trent Williams if Trent Williams misses a few days. It's a big deal to the Niners offense if he's missing these important days and that the 49ers offensive line looks like this because it just disrupts the flow of practice. Quarterbacks can't get into a rhythm. The run game can't get into a rhythm. And even the offensive line themselves can't get into a rhythm. And so this is where, you're hoping the 49ers can get on the same page with Trent Williams sooner than later, and also just evaluate where they are as a unit, because right now it's not great. Last year I predicted this was going to be a top half unit, and they were around 12 to 15. That's what I thought. The year before I thought they were going to be a top 10 unit, and they were. And so I've been optimistic about the 49ers offensive line, even though they might not look on paper as strong as some other teams. This year, right now, I've yet to. I'm not yet realizing that optimism yet. Just because when you look at the pieces around, it's very similar to last year, and you're hoping that some of these guys don't regress again. You're hoping that they take a step forward, and so I think that that's going to be the thing. Am I hitting the panic button yet? No, no. Just because we don't see the top unit. You hear all the practice reports, and I'm there, and I'm giving you practice reports, and it's just not the top unit, right? You have Nick Sakel running in at center, who's the third stringer last year, right? You're bound to have a problem when Javon Hargrave is working against a guy like Nick Sakel. Javon Hargrave working against Aaron Banks. Javon Hargrave is going to win that, right? And it's things like that. And Dominic Puny, he's still learning. He's a rookie, right? And so you're throwing him into the fire. But when you have problems that kind of compound on each other, that's where you got to start talking about the offensive line. And so we'll see how it goes over the rest of camp. I think they're going to get better because pads are back. I think you're going to see a couple of different results, but I also think that Trent Williams is going to be really important, and you want him back sooner than later. Now looking into some of your comments, thoughts on Drake Jackson. Unfortunate, he got an injury, right? I forget what Kyle Shanahan said exactly, but he's missing all of training camp. I would assume he's put on some list, maybe the PUP list or something like that to begin the season. I don't know if he's going to get cut necessarily, just because if you put him on the PUP list, you don't need to give him a roster spot. You can wait and see how he recovers and things like that. But right now, it's not looking that optimistic. At defensive end, the 49ers, I think, have their options set. Nick Bosa, obviously, Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, those are your top three, and I think those are your main contributors. Behind them, they like Robert Beal. Robert Beal's been with the second team as that fourth guy. I think he's going to be making the team. I think those are your four defensive ends. I think you go maybe a little stronger on the defensive tackle range, and I think you go lighter on defensive ends. And so right now, those are probably your four defensive ends. And so I don't know if there's a spot right now for Drake Jackson. I also don't know if his play is warranting him to get a spot after struggling a little bit over the last few seasons. But I hope he gets better, and I hope, once he's healing up from that injury, he can return to practice and hope, show some of the potential he had when he was drafted. Jason says Trent's age and coming in late scares me. They're going to be cautious with him, and Trent Williams is the guy whose work ethic is really important, and he's going to be ready come week one. Though my main worry is we've seen the last two off seasons. Last off season it was Nick Bosa. The off season before that it was Deebo Samuel. Where even if they're in shape, it does affect you. Nick Bosa did not have the year he wanted last year. He only had 10.5 sacks. Deebo Samuel, that 2022 season, he characterized as awful. You don't want a slow start to the season. You can't afford one as well just because of how close this NFC race is going to be. You don't want to not end up as the 1 seed and jeopardize your chances at a championship or things like that. But you also want everyone to be healthy and be ready, and that's also important. And that's the tough balancing act when you have an issue like this where a guy is holding out and you don't have him in camp, because once you bring him back to camp, you're going to work him back in very slowly. He might not play team drills. By that time, it's the preseason, and Trent Williams doesn't really play much in the preseason. And so there are a lot of these types of questions that I hope get answered sooner than later. That is mainly what I have for you guys today. I do want to drop 2 links in the chat because I do write a ton of content on Niners Nation, and that's where I put my written form of what I have overall, of what I'm writing pretty much. So I'm going to drop the 2 articles that I wrote today. One is my 3 quick takeaways. One is my notes and observations. I want you guys to definitely go check those out if you want some more content and if you want to just understand a little more of what happened that I maybe didn't cover in today's live stream. Did Tanner Mordecai get any reps? I'll actually end it here. I'll talk on the quarterback 2 battle because I have talked about it the last couple of days. As you guys know from last week, Brandon Allen, Josh Dobbs, they got all of the 2 and 3 reps. They've been competing with each other, with Allen kind of looking a little better on Thursday. Both were up and down on Friday. And then today is like the third day that I've seen, between these guys. And Tanner Mordecai has yet to get some of those reps. He hasn't gotten any team drill reps. It's been all Brandon Allen or all Josh Dobbs. I thought Josh Dobbs had the better day today. Josh Dobbs had his best day of practice so far today. He had a couple of incompletions, but he threw 2 touchdown passes in the red zone. He was a little more accurate. He had just a better day overall. Brandon Allen, a murky day. He was like Brock Purdy, just like a day where there wasn't that much substance. A lot of incompletions, not enough rhythm offensively, just not enough working really in his favor. Josh Dobbs had the better day, and this should set up to be a fairly good quarterback competition, especially as Dobbs settles in and becomes a little more comfortable, at the position. I think that this is going to be a better look for him. I think he's going to get some more opportunity, and I think that he can now compete with Brandon Allen, who seems like the favorite right now to win the job. And so that's kind of the breakdown. Dobbs had a better day. No picks for either guy. Dobbs, though, had the 2 touchdowns and just a little more accuracy overall, not as many incompletions. But yep, like I said, 30-minute stream today, just breaking down exactly what I saw, as soon as I can get on the camera. Thank you guys so much, though, for tuning in. I appreciate everyone who supports on the daily. We're going to be live tomorrow again, and tomorrow should be a little more of an energetic day here at 49ers Training Camp. But I thank you all so much, and I appreciate the support. We will see you guys soon.